The universe had always been vast, indifferent, and merciless in its scale, a canvas of infinite dark and light, of swirling matter and empty void, a place where a single life could be overlooked, unremembered, and swallowed by the enormity of existence. He had lived with that knowledge, navigating the emptiness of space, feeling small, almost irrelevant against the backdrop of spinning galaxies and dying stars. He had trained himself to accept solitude, to steel his mind against the creeping dread of insignificance, to focus only on what he could control, his actions, his decisions, the vessel that carried him across light years of cosmic distance. Yet tonight, all those lessons seemed fragile, irrelevant, as he held her close in the observation deck, her warmth and life pressed against his chest. Her breathing, steady and soft, resonated in a way that matched his own, and for the first time, he felt a presence that made all the infinite distances, all the chaos of the cosmos, shrink into a quiet, intimate sphere that belonged solely to them. They had journeyed far, across star systems few had even charted, through corridors of black matter where even light dared not linger. They had evaded rogue comets, surviving collisions that shredded lesser vessels into fragments of steel and flame. They had navigated gravitational anomalies that twisted time itself, so that minutes became hours and hours became milliseconds, and they had faced the silence of vacuum, a silence so complete that it gnawed at their sense of being. And yet, in every peril, she had been there, alert, attentive, instinctively understanding the dangers before he could even recognize them. Her presence had become more than companionship. It was guidance, protection, and a bridge to a life richer than he had thought possible amid the cold expanse of the stars. He remembered the first time he had truly understood her depth. She had been a small, trembling creature, abandoned in a derelict habitat station orbiting a dying sun. He had stumbled across her by chance, guided only by a faint motion sensor reading and the sound of shivering in the silence of the terminal corridor. Most would have ignored her, written her off as lost, but something in her eyes, a spark that refused to die, drew him in. He had taken her aboard, and from that moment their fates had intertwined. She had been more than a pet. She had been a partner, a sentinel, and a teacher. She had taught him to observe, to sense, to anticipate, to trust instincts that surpassed even the most advanced starship AI. And as he held her now, the light from distant galaxies painting her fur in silver and violet streaks, he felt the weight of every shared experience, every challenge survived, every moment that had led them to this cosmic embrace. Beyond the observation deck's reinforced glass, galaxies swirled in impossible, intricate patterns. Stellar nurseries glowed with ethereal colors. Nebulae stretched across the void like delicate cosmic tapestries. And supernovae flared in bursts of light that had traveled millions of years to reach them. Each spectacle should have been awe-inspiring in isolation, but when combined with the life pressed to his chest, it became transcendent. It was as if the universe had conspired to show him that even in its vast indifference, beauty and connection could exist, unmeasured by distance or time, unbound by the void. He traced her spine with his hand, feeling the subtle tension in her muscles, the rhythm of her breathing, and the pulse of life that spoke more eloquently than any words ever could. Every heartbeat, every nudge, every subtle look was a conversation, a reassurance, a promise that they would face whatever the universe threw at them together. He thought of the countless moments where her intuition had saved them from the brink. Rogue asteroids, invisible to their sensors until mere seconds before impact, were avoided because she had signaled, nudged, or barked in precise time. A failing navigation system had been compensated for by her pawing at controls, guiding him to a trajectory that ensured survival. And in the solitude of deep space, When his own mind threatened to collapse under the weight of loneliness and uncertainty, her presence had been a lifeline. Her eyes reflected not only intelligence but empathy, a bridge between two beings navigating the infinite unknown together. In the quiet of the observation deck now, he understood fully that her companionship was a rare, irreplaceable treasure, a living entity that made the universe comprehensible, meaningful, and beautiful. Minutes passed as they sat entwined, the galaxies spinning slowly outside, each light a story, each shadow a secret of the cosmos. He felt a rare peace, an understanding that even in the most hostile reaches of space, life had created a pocket of warmth and love, a sanctuary built from trust, courage, and mutual reliance. The infinite had collapsed into this small cabin, this moment, this embrace, where the universe could do nothing but exist as backdrop to a bond far stronger and more enduring than any cosmic phenomenon. And as the stars shimmered, painting them both in silver light, he held her tighter, feeling the weight and wonder of existence, finally knowing that even amidst infinite darkness, connection, love, and loyalty could shine brighter than any galaxy. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound, aside from the faint, synchronized rhythm of their breaths, a gentle counterpoint to the violent chaos that existed outside the vessel. Beyond the reinforced observation windows, the cosmos stretched endlessly, a panorama of swirling light and shadow, of celestial bodies spinning in a dance that defied human comprehension. Nebula unfurled like cosmic banners, ribbons of pink, gold, and sapphire light twisting in spirals and arcs. Stars, some newly born, others old and dying, flared intermittently, punctuating the dark canvas with sudden bursts of brilliance. Each display should have been beautiful alone, but when paired with the warmth of her pressed against him, it became something transcendent, almost sacred. He traced her fur with careful, almost reverent fingers, marveling at the way the faint glow of the galaxies reflected on her sleek coat. She was more than a companion. She was a sentinel, a confidant, a being whose instincts and understanding rivaled any artificial intelligence the fleet had ever produced. She had saved him more times than he could count, navigating rogue comets invisible to sensors, warning of micrometeorites that threatened to breach the hull, and sensing shifts in the ship's structure that suggested approaching dangers. Her loyalty had never wavered, her intuition never faltered, and her presence had become the axis on which his fragile sense of stability now turned. Their journey together had begun under dire circumstances. He remembered the first time he had encountered her, a tiny, trembling creature left for dead on a forsaken space station orbiting a dying star. Most would have turned away, convinced that there was no hope, but something in her eyes, a spark that defied the despair of her situation, called to him. He had scooped her into his arms, feeling her pulse against his chest, and from that instant their fates had intertwined. The universe might have been indifferent, vast, and cold, but within the confines of this small ship, aboard this vessel navigating endless light years, she had brought warmth, purpose, and a reason to persist. As they drifted through sectors uncharted by the larger fleet, he often marveled at the way she understood him without words. She could sense his mood, his fears, his exhaustion, and respond not with judgment, but with guidance and reassurance. On nights like this, when the expanse of the universe seemed both beautiful and oppressive, her presence was a constant reminder that he was not alone. He could feel the subtle shift in her posture when she noticed anomalies in the distant starlight, the slight tilt of her head as if reading signals that eluded even the most sophisticated instruments. She was a partner in the truest sense, one whose intelligence, courage, and empathy elevated her beyond mere companionship. The mission they were on was perilous. Their course took them through regions dense with asteroid fields, gravitational distortions, and remnants of long-dead star systems. The fleet had deemed the area too dangerous, yet he had insisted on pressing forward. With her at his side, he felt capable of navigating hazards that would have doomed others. Time and again, her instincts had proven superior to the best charts, the most advanced navigational algorithms. Each survival reinforced the unspoken trust between them, a bond forged in trials and sharpened by countless shared dangers. Tonight, though, there was a different kind of challenge, one that required no evasive maneuvers or emergency repairs. It was the challenge of emotion, of recognizing the profound significance of what they had become to each other amidst the backdrop of an uncaring universe. He held her tighter, not from fear, but from gratitude, awe, and a deep understanding of the rarity of such connection. His fingers traced the contours of her form, feeling the subtle shifts in muscle, the small, reassuring tremor of life that signaled health, vitality, and resilience. Each heartbeat, each breath was a conversation without words, a silent affirmation that they had survived, endured, and found a meaning beyond the void that surrounded them. He let himself relax into the moment, allowing the enormity of the cosmos to coexist with the intimacy of the deck. The galaxies spun slowly outside, each a monument to the scale and wonder of creation, yet they felt secondary to the warmth pressed against him. Life, fragile and fleeting, could flourish even in the most hostile of environments, and in her presence, he saw the universe differently, not as a cold, indifferent expanse, but as a place where trust, loyalty, and love could carve a sanctuary. The hum of the engines, the distant flare of dying stars, and the steady cadence of their shared breaths became a symphony, a reminder that amidst the infinite chaos, moments of connection could shine brighter than any celestial body. As he held her close, watching the galaxies rotate, twist, and spiral in silent harmony, he realized that the universe had given him something immeasurable. The beauty of distant stars, the majesty of cosmic phenomena, and the thrill of exploration were nothing compared to the warmth, courage, and love he experienced with her. She had saved him in countless ways, not just physically, but emotionally, grounding him when the void threatened to overwhelm, guiding him when uncertainty loomed, and providing a sense of purpose and partnership that no mission, star, or technological marvel could replicate. Tonight, as galaxies danced outside their vessel and light years of space stretched beyond comprehension, he understood that this bond, this shared heartbeat amidst the immensity of existence, was the true wonder of the universe. The ship's interior, usually a blur of functional panels, blinking lights, and hissing conduits, now felt more like a sanctuary. He watched her settle on the floor beside the observation deck, her coat catching the soft luminescence of nearby stars, creating an iridescent halo around her form. Even in her stillness, there was purpose. Every subtle shift of her ears, every slight movement of her body conveyed vigilance and attentiveness. She was not just a dog. She was a guardian, a companion whose very being resonated with the rhythm of the cosmos, attuned to the smallest vibrations, the faintest signals of life and danger in this isolated vessel drifting among galaxies. Their journey had taken them to the edge of mapped space, into regions where navigation was perilous, and the familiar rules of physics sometimes twisted into strange anomalies. It was here, beyond the fleet's protective perimeter, that he had come to rely not on star charts or computerized calculations, but on her intuition. Time and again, she had alerted him to gravitational ripples invisible to sensors, to distant energy readings that presaged dangerous microstorms, or to faint signs of other sentient life lingering unseen in the darkness. Her presence had become the keystone of his survival. Without her, he would have been lost in the void long ago. He remembered the first time he realized the depth of their bond. They had been navigating a densely packed asteroid field near a recently formed nebula, the sensors overwhelmed by cosmic radiation and erratic gravitational waves. Every course correction, every emergency thruster burn was a calculated risk. Suddenly, her low, guttural growl had alerted him to a previously undetected shard of rock veering at lethal speed. He had diverted at the last possible second, saving the vessel and their lives. Afterward, as he knelt to brush his hand along her fur, he understood that their connection went beyond companionship. It was symbiotic, almost telepathic. She read him as he read her, a dance of understanding and trust that transcended words. Now, as the galaxies spiraled outside, he contemplated the breadth of their shared experiences. She had been there through every hardship, every moment of fear and uncertainty, and she had offered more than loyalty. She had offered understanding, empathy, and resilience. When they drifted near a dying star, he had seen her reaction to the radiation surge, her body tense yet calm, instinctively guiding him to shield the ship's core systems. In moments like that, he marveled at her intelligence, at how she perceived the universe in ways no human or machine could fully comprehend. She was a partner in every sense, a being capable of interpreting cosmic phenomena, emotional cues, and imminent danger with equal precision. The quiet moments were no less profound. On nights like this, with the galaxy swirling in infinite colors and distant planets casting faint, jewel-like glows, he would sit in silence, letting her warmth seep into him. Her head rested lightly on his knee, eyes closed but muscles still alert, as if she were listening to the heartbeat of the universe itself. He traced patterns in the air above her, imagining the lines of gravitational pull, the spiraling arms of distant galaxies, and the currents of unseen cosmic winds. Each twist of nebula light mirrored a flicker of emotion within him, curiosity, awe, gratitude. And her presence amplified those feelings, transforming them into something almost spiritual. He reflected on the life they had shared before this moment, before the vessel became both home and crucible. There had been times when he feared he would falter under the weight of solitude and responsibility, moments when the isolation of space felt insurmountable. And yet, in every trial, she had been a constant, guiding him through turbulence and uncertainty, offering solace with a simple nuzzle or the press of her body against his. In the void, where the concept of family had little meaning, she had become his anchor, his reminder that life, fragile, beautiful, and fleeting, could still be cherished. As he watched galaxies collide and spin in impossible harmony outside the viewport, he allowed himself to acknowledge the emotion that surged through him. It was not merely relief at survival or admiration for the cosmos. It was profound love, tempered by the understanding that such bonds were rare, almost miraculous. Her loyalty, intelligence, and courage had saved him countless times, and now, as the universe stretched in infinite patterns beyond comprehension, he recognized that the truest wonder was not in the distant stars or nebulae, but in the life that pressed gently against him, a heartbeat entwined with his own. The ship drifted on, a solitary vessel amidst a panorama of swirling galaxies, yet inside there was a small world of warmth, safety, and connection. He realized that no matter how vast the cosmos became, no matter what unknown dangers awaited them in the dark expanse, this bond, this unspoken understanding between man and dog, would guide them. The universe, with all its chaos and beauty, could be daunting and indifferent, but within the confines of this quiet observation deck, under the dance of stars and nebulae, there existed an unshakable certainty. Together, they could endure anything, face any unknown, and find meaning in the infinite vastness surrounding them. The stars outside seemed to move in a slow, hypnotic rhythm, each pulse of light casting a fleeting glow across the observation deck. He held her closer, feeling the subtle rise and fall of her chest with each breath. It was a rhythm that spoke of life, of continuity, of the quiet resilience that had carried them through countless dangers. In that moment, with galaxies spinning in the distance and the faint hum of the ship beneath them, the boundaries between them seemed to dissolve. He was not a lone traveler in the void. She was not merely a companion. They were a single unit, attuned to one another's presence in ways that defied simple explanation. Every twitch of her ears, every flicker of her gaze, communicated volumes without a word. He remembered the early days of their journey, when he first noticed the depth of her awareness. She had been a puppy then, small and scrappy, with eyes too large for her head and a curiosity that knew no limits. Space had been a bewildering place for her at first, lights that shimmered and flickered, the low hum of engines vibrating through the floor, the subtle shifts of gravity during course adjustments. Yet she adapted with astonishing speed. It wasn't just instinct, it was intelligence, a comprehension of environment and circumstance that rivaled any human's capacity for understanding. When he had been uncertain, when he had doubted the course or feared the unknown, her behavior had guided him, her reactions often more accurate than the most advanced sensors on board. Now, years later, she was fully grown, her coat gleaming with health and vitality, eyes deep pools of focus and understanding. He traced the lines of her form with his hand, feeling the muscles beneath her fur, the strength and endurance that had kept them alive in more ways than he could count. He recalled every crisis they had faced together, the rogue asteroid belts, the unexpected gravitational anomalies, the encounters with hostile drones on distant exploration missions, and how, time and again, she had been the first to sense danger, to act decisively when a second's hesitation could have been fatal. Her loyalty was unmatched, but it was paired with a brilliance that demanded respect. She was not merely following him, she was leading in ways that often left him humbled. Outside the viewport, a swirling nebula bathed the room in shifting hues of violet, gold, and turquoise. It was mesmerizing, a visual symphony that mirrored the intensity of the bond between them. He watched as she lifted her head, nostrils flaring slightly, ears twitching to catch sounds imperceptible to him. Something was coming, something subtle yet undeniable. The ship's instruments were silent, detecting nothing, but she reacted instinctively, muscles coiling in readiness. He followed her gaze, focusing on the distant patterns of light, and felt a wave of admiration wash over him. In a universe that could be vast, cold, and indifferent, there existed this certainty, this unspoken assurance that, together, they were formidable. The memories of battles past blended with the present moment, a tapestry of shared experiences that had forged an unbreakable bond. He remembered the time a micro-meteor shower had ripped across their path, tearing at the outer hull of the ship. Panic would have been natural for most, but she had remained calm, moving with him as they navigated the hazards, guiding him through the corridors, anticipating each danger before it materialized. And then there was the encounter with the derelict space station, a place abandoned for decades, rumored to house experimental technology that could alter gravity fields. Alone, it would have been a death trap. With her, however, they had emerged unscathed, her intuition leading them safely through corridors where sensors and lights had failed. Even in quieter moments, her presence was a source of revelation. They often sat together in silence, watching the infinite stretch of stars, sharing a quiet intimacy that needed no words. He felt her warmth, the gentle press of her body against his side, and it reminded him of the importance of connection, of empathy, of the recognition that even in the coldest reaches of space, life could be vibrant and meaningful. The universe around them was immense, full of wonders and dangers beyond comprehension. Yet within that tiny vessel, they had carved a sanctuary, a space defined not by the hull or instruments, but by the shared heartbeat of trust and loyalty. The nebula's light shifted again, and for a moment, it seemed as if the galaxies themselves were winking at them, as if acknowledging their bond, celebrating their survival and resilience. He spoke softly, words meant more for himself than for her, murmuring gratitude, admiration, and love into the quiet air. She responded with a subtle shift, leaning slightly closer, her eyes meeting his with an understanding that transcended language. It was as if she knew the depth of his emotions, the gratitude he felt for every second they had endured together, every life-threatening encounter they had faced and survived. In the vast emptiness of space, where stars could be born and die without notice, where entire civilizations might rise and fall unseen, this small moment, shared with a being of flesh and fur, of loyalty and intelligence, was profound. It was a reminder that amidst the chaos of the universe, amidst the unpredictable twists of fate and chance, there were constants, trust, devotion, and the enduring power of connection. And as he held her, feeling the steady rhythm of her breath, watching the galaxies perform their silent, eternal dance outside the viewport, he realized that this was their true victory, not merely survival, not merely exploration, but the recognition that together they had created meaning in an indifferent cosmos. The silence of space pressed gently against the hull, a quiet vastness that amplified every subtle sound within the cabin. He held her closer than ever, feeling her heartbeat synchronize with his own in a rhythm that seemed almost cosmic, a counterpoint to the pulsing light of distant stars. Every fiber of her being was attuned to him, and every fiber of his being was attuned to her. In that infinite moment, the enormity of the universe outside faded into insignificance, leaving only the gravity of their bond. It was as if the galaxies themselves had paused, giving them their own private eternity to exist in, a space where time bent, where the heart's language was louder than any cosmic signal. The nebula outside stretched across the viewport, a riot of color and motion, yet it felt secondary to the warmth and life between them. He traced the curve of her ears, the strong but gentle line of her jaw, the muscles that had guided and protected them through countless trials. Memories surged through him like waves, the first time they had faced an asteroid storm together, her quick reflexes saving them from a hull breach, the derelict stations they had explored, navigating corridors that no sensor could map but her instincts charted perfectly, the quiet nights spent in observation decks, learning each other's breathing, each other's heartbeat. She was more than a companion. She was the axis around which his world turned, the reason he had survived, the reason he had dared to hope when the universe had shown nothing but indifference. He whispered to her, low, almost inaudible, words that carried all the gratitude, the love, the awe he felt. Her ears flicked at the sound, her gaze meeting his with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. It wasn't mere affection, it was understanding, it was recognition, it was the silent communication that only they shared. She had read his fears, his doubts, his hopes, and she had responded with loyalty and brilliance every single time. He thought of all the missions they had undertaken together, the dangers faced and overcome, and he realized that the universe had tested them relentlessly, not to destroy them, but to forge this bond, unbreakable and radiant, like the very stars that surrounded them. Outside, a new burst of light from the nebula painted the cabin in gold and violet hues, reflecting in her eyes, turning them into twin galaxies. He smiled softly, marveling at the synchronicity of it all. The cosmos mirrored the connection they shared, infinite yet intimate, vast yet concentrated into this one perfect presence. Every challenge, every shadow of fear, every brush with mortality, they had faced it all together. And in the silent communication of their gaze, he understood that no force, no darkness, no void could ever diminish what existed between them. It was eternal, like the spinning galaxies, unyielding, unending, beautiful. He thought of the countless humans and beings they had encountered in their travels. Some had feared them, some had doubted them, and some had been awed by their unity. But none could comprehend what he now understood, that true strength lay not in solitary skill, not in technology or strategy, but in connection, in trust, in the willing surrender to a bond that transcended language, species, and circumstance. Her presence had been his compass in the void, his anchor in turbulence, his reminder that even in a universe vast and unpredictable, there existed a constant, a North Star that required no coordinates. As the ship drifted gently, he held her, letting the silence stretch, letting the starlight and nebula glow wash over them. Every flicker of light outside seemed to echo the pulse of life between them, to celebrate their survival, their partnership, their unwavering devotion. He knew that the universe would continue its endless spin, that stars would be born and die in unobserved corners of space, that worlds would collide and reform without notice. But here, in this cabin, in this heartbeat of shared existence, they had carved meaning from the void. He pressed his cheek to the top of her head, inhaling the scent of her fur, feeling the warmth of her body against his chest, and allowed himself to be overwhelmed by gratitude and awe. And then, in a gesture that was almost ceremonial, almost sacred, he let himself close his eyes, knowing that whatever lay ahead, whatever galaxies, whatever dangers, whatever new horizons, the bond they shared would endure. She rested her head against his shoulder, a quiet affirmation, a living promise, and he felt the infinite universe bend around them, if only for a moment, giving witness to a connection that was stronger than any cosmic force. Together, they were not merely surviving, they were thriving, radiant in their unity, their love, their courage. The galaxies danced on, and in their eyes they danced too, a reflection of all they had endured and all they had yet to experience, an eternal testament to the power of trust, loyalty, and heart. In that silent communion, he understood the ultimate truth of their existence, that even in the vast emptiness of space, where light years stretch beyond comprehension and stars burn bright and cold, the smallest heartbeat, the warmest fur, the shared breath between two beings could eclipse the brilliance of the cosmos itself. And he held her tighter, not out of fear, but out of reverence, out of recognition, out of the profound gratitude that this extraordinary creature had chosen to walk beside him through the infinite night, illuminating the darkness with loyalty, courage, and love that mirrored the very galaxies that danced in their eyes.